But before we move on to the Colbys, and we're starting to get to the time where there was an overlap between the two series, aren't we? So season 4 was 84 to 85, and then 85 to 86, season 5. Around about then, I think they introduced Crystal, the fake Crystal.
Yes.
Do you remember about that? And can you explain a bit about that?
Because I think that showed Linda Evans' acting talents.
Yeah.
Because the fake Crystal was trailer trash, basically. And she, there was a plot to get Blake's money, and she was part of the plot. And Crystal was incarcerated somewhere. The real Crystal was incarcerated somewhere, and the fake Crystal was pretending to be Crystal and not getting it right sometimes, which is almost hilarious. And that was a good storyline, but I did enjoy it for seeing Linda Evans do something different instead of being nicey Crystal.
Yeah, the two problems though, weren't there? With that? I think it was around that time that was it the BBC? Was it BBC? I think, wasn't it, that showed Dynasty?
Yes.
They introduced the Colbys, and then they had one episode of Colbys, and then they had one episode of Dynasty, and then it felt like she was trapped in the attic, the real Crystal, for about a year. I don't think it was a year, but it was elongated, wasn't it? Because I think in the States they rang them in the same week, but in the UK they made the decision to have them in separate weeks, which I think was a mistake, because people were just sort of so drained by the storyline that they were desperate for it to get out. But so an interesting storyline. And around that time, of course, then we had the changeover to, or the introduction of Colbys, which is what I'm talking about really. And there was a dinner, wasn't there, where Crystal, the fake Crystal, was playing the real Crystal, and it was, when you think about it, they're amazing storylines, but at the time I don't think we actually appreciated them. Maybe they were a little bit too outlandish, but I certainly enjoyed them.
I did, and I think that's where Dynasty made their mistake, really, by introducing doing a Colby spin-off, because it's what they based it on was Knots Landing had been such a success, and eventually it outlived Dallas, and I think they were looking to extend the brand, and I think it was coming towards the end of the whole yuppie thing that was going on in the UK at the time, and the whole you can live like a superstar, and and the whole money business in the city where people had so much money. And I think it was a slight mistake, because the Colbys was brilliant. I loved the Colbys, don't get me wrong, but I just think that it was the wrong time to introduce the soap.
That's a very good point. I think sometimes you've got to get the timing right, and I think Knots Landing, they did get the timing right with that, because they swapped over. I think it was the early 80s, wasn't it, with Knots Landing?
Yes.
And that actually outlasted all the others, didn't it? I think it went on till 93, was it?
Yeah.
Knots Landing. So it actually turned out to be the longest running one of all. And we'll come back to Knots Landing in another episode later on. But yeah, let's just go back then to that the Colbys, really, and the swap. And I think one of the most important things was that Alexis, Dame Joan Collins, I think that put her off, didn't it? Because she never actually appeared in the Colbys, and so they lost Joan Collins to some extent. I think it's fair to say that she wasn't as enthusiastic about the show. I shouldn't really speak for her. I've never met Dame Joan Collins, but I suspect that there was a lack of enthusiasm for the project as it progressed throughout the 80s. I don't know whether you agree with that. Maybe that's a bit unfair.
Yeah, I think is what they tried to do. I mean, and they did initially. They branded it as Dynasty 2.
Yeah.
The Colbys. and I think they were hoping that would attract the Dynasty viewers. And the lack of crossover, as you were saying, with Joan Collins not appearing in it, Linda Evans only appearing in it a couple of times, and where it was the fake Linda.
The fake Linda.
Crystal.
Did the real Linda actually ever appear in it? I can't remember.
I don't think she did.
No.
And again, they attracted quite big names for the Colbys. I mean, Charlton Heston and Barbara Stanwyck.
Yeah.
Were huge names. And I think they were hoping, again, the American public would tune in to that. I think it was sad that it only ran 2 seasons. Yeah. I would like to run a couple more.
Not least to find out what happened to Emma Samms in the spacecraft.
You know, and that has to. I think there are 3 television moments, television soap moments.
Yeah,
that are my classics and go to if I ever want to cheer up. And I think the ending of the Colbys.
Yeah, I agree.
The whole spaceship thing was fantastic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to cough now.
I'll carry on talking for a bit. I actually shared it on Facebook recently, not because everyone is starting to get so paranoid about what's happening with the world. It's just crazy things happening, and people have started talking about aliens and who knows. And wasn't there something appeared in Nevada, some metal contraption, and then it appeared somewhere else, and so people have started making jokes and memes have appeared about aliens, and so I shared it, and who knows. But it's almost topical, isn't it, for people to start wondering what's happening with some very strange things that are going on in the world at the moment. And but I just think that episode was so amazing. I don't know whether I can't really say I'm more of a fan of the Colbys than Dynasty, because I love them both, but I think probably from the mid 80s I was slightly more, certainly for those 2 seasons, I was very interested in the Colbys, and I think I was more keen on that. Maybe it was because it was even more lavish, the costumes are so much more dramatic, and the storylines were even more crazy. I loved it for those 2 years.
And I think casting Stephanie Beacham was fantastic.
Yeah,
and she just made that character her own, and she is truly a soap queen in that.
Yeah,
she really is.
Stephanie Beacham, then she'd been in the Tenko, hadn't she? Been in Tenko?
She had, yeah, and she sort of had a dalliance into soap with Connie, which was
Connie,
Central TV production. Yeah. Made on a shoestring, and that was sort of like a soapy drama. And then she went to the Colbys, which was just made her, I think, and I just loved her in that. I think that's what made the Colbys for me, really.
There's some amazing moments with her in. I mean, she's so camp, I suppose is the word.
Yes. And just the way she used to react to Jason Charlton Heston and Barbara Stanwyck. I do wonder if they really got on in real life. We'll never know, but I do wonder, because some of the one-liners she had towards Barbara Stanwyck were really. Yeah.
And I loved also the conflict between Maxwell Caulfield and John James over Emma Samms. That was good as well. And also the rape. Do you remember the supposed rape of Fallon, Emma Samms' character, originally Pamela Sue Martin, and that scene, that was because there's some of the most amazing reveals have been in the Colbys, actually, I think, even more than Dynasty, because you had that, and it was like a real jaw-dropping moment, wasn't it? When people thought that Adam had raped his own sister. And then I can't even remember how they explained that. Was it some sort of she had a psychotic episode.
Yes, it was, wasn't it? It was something like that. She had gone through some sort of, because she was meant to be somebody else at the time, and very weird.
Yeah, and also the fight between Miles and Jeff. Do you remember that? The overlooking the Pacific Ocean, I assume, in that cliff house. Do you remember that one? It's 86.
I do.
I remember it as if it was yesterday, where who went over the edge? Was it Jeff or Miles? Because they had a change around the following year, but I think it was Miles who was holding on to Jeff.
I think it was. Yeah.
Classic moment, that. But probably the classic for me was in season 2 when Philip Colby was revealed as being, Hoyt Parker was revealed as being Philip Colby at the wedding.
That's it. Yeah.
To me, that is the greatest moment in any soap. Yes, okay, you've got the spacecraft one, but for me, that was possibly even better because it was just so unexpected. And I remember when I saw that, I won't swear, but I just couldn't believe that because I didn't see it coming. I don't know whether you did, but this character Hoyt Parker was introduced as supposedly a Vietnam veteran. Then Philip Colby, who'd been supposedly dead in Vietnam, came back to life. And I do like people coming back to life. It's quite dramatic, isn't it? So
but you just mentioned about the beach house. I actually went about 10 years ago now. I actually went to California.
Oh, okay.
And I went to Filoli, which is actually the Dynasty house.
Ah, yes, I think you told me that. Yes,
and it was amazing to go round there, and I saw the lily pond where that famous fight between Alexis and Crystal took place. And the guy that was showing me round, he said, "Would you like to use the bathroom that Joan and Linda used to use when they were filming here?" So I said, "Oh, yes."
As you do.
And it was all done out. It was all, there was the toilet seat was actually fur-lined. It was very, very funny. Very funny. But it's a beautiful house, and it's way out just outside San Francisco. And it's a National Trust property. But if you're ever in that area, it is worth going because it is a beautiful house in beautiful grounds.
Well, I'm thinking of going as soon as I can this year. I'd love to go to the West Coast. I've got quite a few friends now from, not people I've met really, but people who I've met online, if you like, but not in that way. Just people that I've acquaintances through music. And I'd just like to go to obviously LA, but also San Francisco, because obviously you've got the Dynasty house there, and that was where Falcon Crest was filmed as well, which is, we'll talk about that in another episode, because that to me is even better than Dynasty. I shouldn't perhaps have said that, should I? No, they're all brilliant, but that was the one that just was jaw-dropping. I got to be honest, and this is perhaps one for discussion really, it's interesting that some of these are just no longer available. I mean, you can't get season 3 onwards, or you couldn't get them for Falcon Crest or Knots Landing. I think season 4 is now available on iTunes, but unless you record them at the time, I mean, there are a few clips on YouTube, but you don't get the whole episodes anymore unless you, I don't know whether that's true or not.
It's weird because I think I've got the Falcon Crest ones. I got them from Germany.
Yeah,
because it's hugely popular over there, as is the Colbys apparently.
That all season 1 to 9, the whole thing.
I haven't got them all. No, I think I've got about 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, because I did some research. I haven't bought them yet actually, but over lockdown I thought I would sit down and watch them, but I haven't really found the time yet. But I will. If there was a box set with 1 to 9, like there is with Dynasty, because I've got them all here, 1 to 9 all the way through. And I watch them occasionally. But nowadays, I think people like things online, and buying them on iTunes is a good idea. But I'd like them all to be available, really, rather than just drip feeding them. But it just occurs to me that they were so outlandish and they were so incredible, some of these storylines, is that I wonder whether it just seems amazing that they're not available. They're almost a bad influence, I think. They're such weird storylines and such evil people, if you like, that somebody has taken a decision to not allow people to watch a very popular show somewhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know really. Maybe that's a little bit too paranoid, but it just puzzles me how there's so many fans for these soaps in the world. And even if you look on YouTube, there's lots of episodes which are just not there, and you can't find them, whatever search term you put in. Anyway, enough about that. So we've sort of dealt with the Colbys to a pretty great extent, I think. Now back to Dynasty then until its end, and then we'll look a little bit about look at the new Dynasty briefly before we finish. So Emma and Stephanie went back into Dynasty, didn't they, after Colbys ended? I can't remember if anyone else did. Did Diane Carroll? I think she may have done as well, because she went to Colbys for a while, or was she one that stayed in both? She might be one that stayed in both.
I think she didn't last very long after that. She went. Obviously, Jeff Colby went back into and Miles. So yeah, I think after the Colbys finished and they didn't quite know what to do with all the characters, and we ended up with too many characters in Dynasty, and I think that was its downfall. Though the production values were still good, and you know the storylines were still as bizarre as ever, I just think there was too many characters in it, and it felt like they were all fighting for a screen time, basically. So that was its downfall, I think.
And I think it may also have had something to do with Dame Joan Collins slightly losing, not so much enthusiasm, but it was just she didn't want to be in the Colbys, which is fair enough, perfectly valid reasons. And as it turned out, the Colbys was cancelled anyway. And then, yes, we'll bring some of the characters back. But it always felt to me that it lost a bit of its mojo as it went towards the end of the 80s. I don't know whether you agree with that, but
no,
I didn't watch it, but I didn't watch it with quite the same enthusiasm I did for the first 5 or 6 seasons. But
I think it's sort of, by that time it was running its natural life. As with all those big American soap operas, they were all coming towards their natural life. We were moving into the 90s, a different decade, and the world was changing slightly.
And maybe it has something to do with it, as I say, with the political landscape, which was Reagan, Thatcher, and so they perhaps didn't really represent the mood when we moved into the 90s. Those sort of shows, so lavish and Machiavellian and pursuit of greed is good culture, and maybe it just didn't fit the mood of the 90s. I don't know, but we could talk another time about why all these soaps ended in the 90s. But certainly I think for Dynasty, which I think was 89, wasn't it? It ended something around then, wasn't it?
It was around that.
So let's talk a little bit about the reboot, because most of some of the major soaps have been rebooted recently. I think was the first one Dallas, the reboot, and then you had Dynasty, and they were both very different in a way. We'll talk about the Dallas reboot specifically when we do the Dallas episode, but I think it's fair to say that they were sort of quite faithful to the original and used the original characters with storylines that followed on from the original series, but 20, 30 years into the future, but also had some new hot actors and actresses who would appeal to the younger element, but still had some of the old favorites. And of course, Larry Hagman sadly died between one of the seasons. Was it season 2?
It was the end of season 1, beginning of season 2.
And that was obviously tragic. But the Dynasty one was quite different. You know more about that than me. I think I'm still only in season 3, but just explain a bit about the reboot, if you could.
Yeah, I mean, this was CW Network in America. There had been talk for years about a reboot of Dynasty, and even at one point, John Travolta was rumored to be going in and playing Blake, which I don't like reboots, to be quite honest with you. I just find them a bit, you know, it's like trying to raise a friend that has died, you know, and saying they're better off where they are now. But when I first saw the reboot of Dynasty, I thought it was really good. I quite, because it's on Netflix. You can get it on Netflix. Usually a couple of days after it's aired in the States, and I found it. They'd obviously shifted from Denver to Atlanta, which seems to be a lot of these American shows now are based in Atlanta. I think it's cheaper to film there now. It become politically correct, but I found it really good. I know you've not been enjoying it as much as I have, but
yeah, I find it a bit confusing, because the way I would describe it is that they've literally thrown all the storylines in a bag, and they've just, like a bingo sort of bag, and they've just thrown them all together. They thought, oh, let's use this storyline in relation to this character, and we'll have a different. I don't know if that's a fair comment, but it's sort of. I sort of watch it, but I don't quite always understand it, if that's the way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, the funniest thing I find is that they've had issues with actresses who've been playing Crystal.
Yes.
Because they made Crystal Mexican.
And Alexis as well, yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about Crystal.
Yeah. Sorry?
Tell us about the change in relation to Crystal.
Well, the first actress that played Crystal, she was a Mexican, and she was true to the original series. She was Blake's PA. And then all of a sudden, we go into season 2, and the actress has changed, and we get a new Crystal, who's also Mexican, but she's got a backstory where her family dealing drugs in Mexico. So it's all very confusing in that respect. But it's Dynasty. It's explained away. You just think, oh yeah, okay, it's another bizarre plot.
Yeah. Maybe I'd say a few words about the Alexis situation, because Nicolette Sheridan, who's one of my favourite actresses from Desperate Housewives, she was brought in to play the first Alexis, let's put it that way. And then, when did she leave, basically, Nicolette Sheridan? And then there was the issue of the plastic surgery. Supposed plastic surgery, and she was played by who? Can you remember? She was
played by the actress that plays Fallon.
Plays Fallon, and then which was a bit bizarre. So she had her face altered, which is not the first time in Dynasty history that's happened. But the face was altered to be like her own daughter in the show, Fallon, who's probably the main character, I think, in the show. Yeah. And then they changed it again in season, well, the one I'm watching. So we had a new actress again, with a slightly different plastic surgery change. Do you remember that? I can't even remember the name of the actress, to be fair.
No, I can't. But she explained away that she didn't like the look and looking like her daughter, and she wanted to be a bit more like her old self. But I understand Nicolette Sheridan, she left because of family issues.
Oh, okay.
And I think she sort of left very quickly.
Okay.
And it left them with a bit of a quick change in the plot. So
that's the quickest change you could ever see, isn't it? Using an actress in the cast. It is a bit bizarre when you think about it. A double plastic surgery change. You've seen season 4, haven't you? There is a season 4, isn't there?
They're filming it at the moment. I think it airs in the States in May, so it should be on.
So I'm not that far behind. I'm on episode 20 of season 3. So So don't tell me how it ends, but I'll make sure I watch it. Actually, tell us how it ends if you want to.
No, it ends really abruptly because of COVID.
Oh,
there was,
okay.
I think you're probably near the very end because there was meant to be 25 episodes and it ends after 21, I think.
Oh, so you don't mean, I thought they might have introduced COVID into the plot, but they didn't do that. They just couldn't carry on filming anymore.
They couldn't carry on filming.
Okay. So it's not really a logical end in terms of.
No, it just sort of, it's just like a normal episode ending.
Oh, okay. Well, that's quite interesting. So they're filming. I think it's probably good that they said, oh, it's the end of season 3 and then start season 4 afresh.
Yeah. So I think that airs in May. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure.
I think so. Yeah. If I've got any of this wrong and it's season 4 that's already been shown in season 5 that's coming, I apologise because I got that in the back of my mind now. But as I say, I'm in season 3 definitely, and I've seen. But you remember you've got the new Crystal, the new Alexis in the new actress.
Yes. Yeah.
And it ends not long after that.
It does, yeah.
Oh, in that case, I probably am pretty much up to date. Okay, good. So thanks very much for your time, Chris. I think we'll leave it there. We've been talking about Dynasty 2, or the reboot, and the Colbys. And just another reminder that on the 20th of March, there is an excellent charity event for COVID, long COVID. All the details are online, and certainly if you follow Emma Sams on Twitter, and I think Stephanie Beecham also is plugging the show, and there is a special appearance by Dame Joan Collins, and I'll be watching, Chris will be watching, and if you have any comments on what we've discussed today, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Okay, thanks for your time, Chris, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Thanks.